Japan has almost no oil, no large farmland, and less land overall than the state of California. And yet it built one of the largest economies on the planet, not through luck, and not through some hidden financial trick. Through habits. Small, unglamorous habits practiced so consistently, for so many decades, that they quietly turned into fortunes. Here is the strange part. The wealthiest people in Japan rarely look wealthy. They drive ordinary cars, wear plain clothes, and live in homes that are smaller than you would expect. They almost never talk about money. And yet, generation after generation, their households build wealth at a pace that leaves most Western families behind. Today we are looking at the first half of 9 habits behind that pattern. Not tips, not hacks. A way of living that treats money as something you shape quietly over a lifetime, not something you chase loudly in a single year. None of these habits require a high income to start. None of them require you to move to Tokyo or read a single finance book. They require you to change how you relate to waste, to time, to purpose, and to your own attention. That is uncomfortable at first, and then it becomes automatic. And automatic is exactly where compounding does its best work. If you like the sound of that, stay with me, because the first habit alone can change how you see every purchase you make for the rest of your life. There is a Japanese word, motenai, that does not translate cleanly into English. The closest we can get is a feeling of regret when something useful is thrown away before its value has been used up. Not simple frustration, something closer to quiet sorrow. In much of the West, we have built an entire lifestyle around the opposite idea. Buy it, use it once, replace it. Studies on household food waste in the United States suggest that close to a third of all food bought never actually gets eaten. That is not a rounding error. That is money walking straight into the trash can. I read about an older woman in a small Japanese town who kept a household ledger for over 50 years. She turned vegetable peels into broth, mended clothing instead of replacing it, and reused the same cloth wrapping for gifts for years at a time. When her grandson, visiting from abroad, left half a bowl of rice on the table, she did not scold him. She simply explained, calmly, that every grain represented someone's labor, the farmer, the miller, the years of rain that grew it. Wasting it, she said, was wasting all of that effort at once. By the time she passed away, her modest savings, built from a modest income and never touched carelessly, were worth more than most people would expect from a lifetime of average wages. Run the numbers yourself. If an average household stops leaking around $3,000 a year on food waste and needless replacement purchases, and instead invests that money at a normal long-term market return, it turns into well over $100,000 across 2 decades. Not from earning more. From simply refusing to waste what is already there. This habit is not about being cheap. It is about noticing waste and letting it bother you enough to change your behavior. Try it for 1 week. Before you throw anything away, food, packaging, a half-used product, pause for 3 seconds and ask whether it still has value left in it. Most weeks, you will be surprised how often the honest answer is yes. The second idea is harder to translate because English simply does not have a word for it. Ikigai roughly means the reason you get out of bed, the overlap between what you love doing, what you are good at, what the world actually needs, and what someone is willing to pay for. Researchers studying some of the longest living communities in southern Japan noticed something unusual. People in their 80s and 90s were still waking early with a clear sense of purpose. A retired fisherman kept going out to sea several times a week, not because he needed the income, but because it was simply who he was. His boat was old and patched. His health, remarkably, was not. Here is the financial angle most people miss. When your work feels meaningless, you spend money trying to recover from it. The takeout meals after a draining shift, the impulse purchases on the weekend, the little rewards that are really just compensation for 5 days you would rather not have lived. People who report a strong sense of purpose in their daily work consistently report noticeably lower recovery spending than people who are simply enduring their jobs. And there is a second, quieter effect. Someone who genuinely enjoys their work tends to keep working, in some form, well past the age everyone else is desperate to retire. A few extra years of steady income, invested rather than spent, can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime, compared to burning out early and stopping cold. Ikigai is not a single dramatic discovery. It is a direction. It starts with one honest question. Would I still choose to do this, even if nobody was paying me? You do not need to quit your job to answer it. You just need to start noticing, honestly, which parts of your week actually energize you, and which parts you are quietly buying your way out of every single day. You have probably tried a budgeting app. Automatic categories, colorful charts, a notification when you overspend. Very slick. And for most people, almost completely useless at actually changing behavior. Because tapping a screen creates almost no physical sensation. The money leaves quietly, and your brain barely registers it. Back in 1904, a Japanese journalist named Motoko Hani created a simple handwritten household ledger for women managing family budgets. It became known as kakeibo, and it is still used today. The idea was never really about tracking numbers. It was about the physical act of writing them down. Each month opens with 4 honest questions. How much do I have? How much do I want to save? How much am I actually spending and on what? And how can this month be better than the last? Every purchase is then written out by hand, sorted into a small number of simple categories: needs, wants, culture, and the unexpected. There is something about seeing your own handwriting next to a number like $14, lunch I could have packed, that a phone notification simply cannot replicate. People who practice this kind of manual tracking consistently report meaningfully higher savings rates than people relying purely on automated apps. Not because they earn differently, but because writing forces a moment of conscious awareness that swiping past a notification never does. The barrier to trying this is almost nothing. A cheap notebook, 4 questions at the start of the month, every purchase written down the same day it happens, a short review at the end. If it feels slightly tedious, that is not a flaw. That is the entire mechanism working exactly as intended. The 4th idea is about empty space, what the Japanese call ma. Not emptiness as poverty, but emptiness as intention. Walk into a traditionally designed Japanese room, and the first thing you notice is what is missing. One carefully chosen object on a shelf instead of a shelf packed with things. Open floor space instead of furniture crowding every corner. Western visitors sometimes mistake this for scarcity. It is closer to the opposite. A well-known merchant once explained it to a foreign trading partner who had commented on how bare his house looked. A full house, he said, tends to produce a full and cluttered mind, and a full mind makes rushed, anxious decisions. Empty space, kept on purpose, keeps the mind clear enough to actually see opportunity when it appears. Here is why that matters for your wallet. When you are uncomfortable sitting in silence, or in an empty afternoon, or in a bare room, you tend to fill that discomfort with something, usually something you buy. An idle hour becomes a scrolling session that ends in a cart checkout. A quiet weekend becomes an unplanned purchase that has nothing to do with need and everything to do with restlessness. Estimates on this kind of impulse or boredom spending in Western households run into several $100s a month for a lot of people. Money spent not from genuine want, but from an inability to simply sit with empty time. Redirected and invested consistently over 20 or 30 years, it can quietly become a 6-figure difference in retirement. Practicing Ma does not require redecorating your house. It can be as simple as one deliberately empty hour a week, with no screen and no errand, where you let yourself feel restless without reaching for your wallet to fix it. The first few times, that hour will feel strangely uncomfortable. That discomfort is exactly the impulse that has been quietly running your spending, and once you can sit through it calmly, it loses most of its power over your bank account. That is 4 habits down, 5 still to come, including the one that, statistically, determines your entire earning ceiling more than any other single factor on this list. We are going to slow down there, because most people get it completely backwards. If any of these 4 resonated with you, that is a good sign this way of thinking will actually work for you. Part 2 picks up exactly where we left off, with the habit that turns ordinary skill into an irreplaceable income, plus the 2 very different retirements that show exactly what 40 years of these small choices adds up to. I really hope this first half landed the way I wanted it to. Let me know which of these 4 hit hardest for you, and I will see you in part 2 very soon.